The EU's SAFE program was supposed to be the crowning achievement of Donald Tusk's current term as Prime Minister of Poland. Billions of euros were to flow to Poland in the form of investments in the defense industry. However, more and more of the program's details are filtering through to the general public, causing public opinion on the program to sour. Tusk sent his men to go to the media and say anyone who doesn't support the SAFE program is a traitor to the state, because they realized they were losing public opinion on the issue. Tusk's government tried to portray the program as a monumental success.
Tak? Dzięki. Słuchajcie, mamy to. 44 miliardy euro dla Polski na obronność z programu SAFE.
Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced the SAFE loan with a great fanfare. Poland was to get the most money of any country. It all sounded beautiful, until the program's details started to gain media coverage. Thanks to the journalists from TV Republika, the narrative presented by the government is slowly falling apart. There are many doubts about the program. Among others, the money can only be used to buy EU military equipment, and the companies set to receive the investment money are currently classified to the public. The main problem, however, is the conditionality clause built into the SAFE loans contract. Officially, the European Parliament can withhold the borrowed money if it judges Poland to be in violation of principles of rule of law or human rights, among others. In practice, this means the EU can withhold the borrowed money at will and force whatever concessions it wants to unblock the money. A similar situation happened in 2023. When the EU withheld almost 60 billion euros of post-COVID reconstruction money originally intended for Poland, only unfreezing it after Donald Tusk's party won that year's parliamentary election. The promise of unblocking that money was a linchpin of Tusk's election campaign and a significant factor in him getting into office. We keep hearing about the SAFE loan as if it were a donation. It is spoken of in such a way that this money is being given to us, rather than it being a loan that will have to be repaid. Polish public opinion has begun to realize the SAFE loan is not the free mountains of gold that Tusk portrayed it as. According to a survey conducted by SW Research for Rzeczpospolita, nearly 40% of respondents believe the SAFE program may serve Germany's interests. Only 1 in 3 disagrees. Tusk and his government know this, which is why they have begun labeling those who do not support this program as traitors.
Jeśli oczywiście prawica i prezydent zrozumieją, na co robią zamach.
Zdrajcy PiS. Zdrajcy PiS.
Polish citizens even staged a demonstration in front of the presidential palace, calling on President Karol Nawrocki to veto the bill when it comes to his desk. As things stand now, a veto seems likely. No to SAFE, not because we don't want armaments, but because SAFE would lock us into dependency on European industry. The SAFE program could easily function the same way as the blocked post-COVID recovery funds did in 2023. In other words, the money would really just be a bargaining chip, leveraging the threat of economic turmoil to win Tusk an election that would normally end with him stepping down as prime minister. The SAFE program is a safety buffer, not for Polish national security, but for Donald Tusk's political career. In 2023, Donald Tusk built his election campaign on the post-COVID recovery fund. Here in Sopot, I make a solemn promise that the day after the elections, I will go and unblock the money from the National Recovery Plan, and we will all feel it. The money from the post-COVID recovery fund was frozen until the previous government, led by current main opposition party Law and Justice, was removed from power. Politicians in Tusk's party made no secret of this. This money will be frozen. Therefore, when we win the next election, it will be unfrozen. In the end, Tusk ended up as prime minister after his party took second place in the election and organized a government coalition.
Musimy zdążyć dzisiaj wieczorem, żeby jutro Tusk i von der Leyen mogli uzgodnić wypłatę 5 miliardów dla Polski. Jest już 20:45. I normalnie o tej porze kończą pracę. Jesteśmy uratowani. Zdążyliśmy. Teraz wszystko w rękach Tuska i von der Leyen.
Today, the SAFE program could fill that very same role as the European Union's leverage against Polish voters.
Polską rządzi fatalny rząd.
Poland is ruled by a terrible government, a terrible coalition government, which is handing over its powers to those west of the Oder River.
Dzień dobry.
The government's narrative of SAFE being a success story is slowly falling apart. Its more nefarious aspects are no longer hidden from the court of public opinion. The Galician slaughter began here, in what is now the municipality of Brzostek, located on the border between the Subcarpathia and Lesser Poland voivodeships, when, in February 1846, the Polish nobility launched another nationwide uprising. The Austrian occupiers deliberately turned Polish peasants against Polish patriots. The Austrian authorities managed to forestall the insurrectionary agitators by reaching out to the peasants, telling them it was the representatives of the Polish nobility who posed a threat to them, and that the only salvation could come from the Austrian imperial authorities. On the orders of the Austrian governor of Tarnów, Joseph Bereynl, an unprecedented massacre took place, known in Polish history as the Galician slaughter. Instead of fighting the Austrian occupiers, Polish peasants attacked Polish manors, brutally murdering not only the nobility, but also random people. The devastation was enormous, as around 500 manors were destroyed, and, according to various estimates, between 1,200 and 3,000 people were killed. The largest grave of the victims of the Galician massacre is located in the old cemetery in Tarnów. Over time, many legends and stories arose. People added this, omitted that, tried to whitewash their families. Today, from the perspective of 180 years later, we can talk about it differently. Despite this, the prevailing narrative is still that the Galician slaughter was a spontaneous uprising of oppressed peasants, a settling of centuries-old grievances. And their leader, Jakub Szela from the village of Smarzowa, is sometimes judged ambivalently, even in his hometown. If you worked all day for a slice of bread and got beaten up on top of that, you would do the same. This is exactly how old Austrian propaganda left behind the memory of the Galician slaughter. Meanwhile, its real causes were different. The sophistication of the Viennese administration lay in suppressing the Polish movement with the hands of other Poles. There would have been no Galician slaughter without these plans for an uprising, and these plans for an uprising were drowned in blood, especially here in the Austrian partition by the Austrians, who exploited the real social conflict in the Galician countryside, which smoldered between the manor and the peasants. From this, an important lesson flows for future generations of Poles. The peasants who murdered the landowners were incited by other powers, and this is what seems relevant today, not to succumb to outside powers, which unfortunately are particularly evident today. For the betrayal and slaughter of Polish freedom fighters, Jakub Szela received a 30-acre farm in Bukowina and tax exemption from the Austrians. Today, though times are indeed changing, similar strategies still see use. The Supreme Court's decision went against the decisions of the U.S. president, who is trying to strengthen his country's economy through customs and tariff policy.
Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country.
The Supreme Court challenged most, but not all, of the tariffs imposed by the U.S. administration. It ruled that Trump had exceeded his authority by imposing 20% tariffs on Chinese exports, among other things, under the Emergency Powers Act. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance described the court's decision as unlawful. He also stated it hinders the protection of the American market, but does not prevent it. Today, the Supreme Court decided that Congress, despite giving the president the ability to regulate imports, didn't actually mean it. This is lawlessness from the court, plain and simple, and its only effect will be to make it harder for the president to protect American industries and supply chain resiliency. President Trump has a wide range of other tariff powers, and he will use them to defend American workers and advance this administration's trade priorities.
For effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122, over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies.
Today, the U.S. president clarified that some countries may be subject to a maximum rate of 15% under these regulations. Tariffs on goods imported into the United States from all countries will take effect on February 24th and will remain in effect for 150 days.
I don't expect much would happen because I doubt most Asian economies will try to use as a leverage in the negotiations with the U.S. Because for many of them, the U.S. is not just a major export destination. It is also a security partner, especially for countries like Japan and Korea, a technology partner, and also a financial anchor.
Tariffs on imports to the U.S. are one of the most important projects of the current White House administration, announced during the election campaign. Its main goal is to strengthen the U.S. economy by bringing back manufacturing, which has been moving to places like China for years, weakening the United States.
Beijing's perspective, legal uncertainty is secondary to political certainty, and the political direction in the U.S. has been remarkably consistent. Across administrations, across parties, the broad consensus is that the economic competition with China would need to be managed and often constrained.
Donald Trump will fly to Beijing either at the end of March or the beginning of April, and trade will be one of the most important topics. At yesterday's conference, the U.S. president also criticized the European Union's energy and immigration policies, stating that Poland, among others,
You look at Hungary, you look at Poland, Czech,
has taken a different path.